My name's John Hanks and I'm a zoologist by training. I did my PhD on elephants at Cambridge working in Zambia, and for the last 50 years I worked in different parts of Africa. And recently I've become quite closely involved with the whole story of what do we do about rhino poaching. And about 5 years ago I wrote this book called Operation Lock, and it was an account of a sincere attempt we made to try to identify the middlemen who drive the rhino horn trade. You see, it's all very well to chase the poachers, but the poachers come across into protected areas or into South Africa or other countries because a middleman is going to them and they're saying, here's a sum of money, go and get me a rhino horn. Now, the reality is there's massive poverty in Africa. And if you were living in a place where you had no job, you were unemployed, you were suffering from malnutrition, and somebody offers you a big sum of money to go and kill a rhino, you're going to do it. And of course, it's happened all over Africa. It's happening today in Kruger National Park, for example, one of the biggest parks in Africa, where people come into the park from Mozambique. They kill a rhino and they try to get out again. And of course, in the process, they're often apprehended, and unfortunately, some of the people have been killed. Now, chasing those people is part of it. Trying to protect rhinos in the field has to be done. But who are the middlemen who are driving the trade? Where's the money going to come from to continue this very expensive work that has to be done of sending up drones, of having people patrolling all the time, of putting up fences to keep animals in and people out? Where's the money going to come from? And I've come to realize that what we have to look at now in Africa is to see what are the options for making wildlife pay its own way. Okay, of course there's tourism, but even Kruger National Park, with 1.5 million visitors a year, does not generate enough money for anti-poaching activities and everything else that's needed. So the smaller sanctuaries have got very little chance of doing that. What we have to look at is, are there ways of using animals in these areas that is sustainable, that is humane, and that is going to generate the funds that are needed. And I'm a very strong advocate of a legal trade in rhino horn. Now, people, when they first hear that, are horrified. They say, how can you possibly advocate that when we're trying to do everything we can to close down the trade? Well, think about this. There's been a massive effort over the last 23 years to close down the trade in rhino horn, and it's failed. Black rhinos, numbers have crashed from 100,000 down to about 5,000. 20 countries in Africa have lost all their black rhinos. It's a very serious situation. Where's the money going to come from to look after those that remain? A lot of people don't realize that you can dehorn a rhino quite easily. It's immobilized. It's like cutting a fingernail off. It's immobilized. The horn can be cut off and then it grows again. Now, the advantage of dehorning a rhino in the first place is that it leaves a little bit of horn left on the front of the rhino, which perhaps a poacher wouldn't be tempted to go for as much as a full horn. But then the horn regrows, and a horn, when it's cut, can regrow up to 8 times in the animal's lifetime, and it could be cut again. What do you do with a horn? Burn it? Throw it away? It generates a huge amount of money. And if we had a strictly controlled legal trade where the profit from the horn goes to the people who are looking after the animals and not to the criminal syndicates, this would really turn things around. It's not a simple overnight thing that's going to happen. You've got to have cooperation of the countries importing the horn. You've got to have strictly controlled systems in place anywhere in Africa where horn is coming from. You've got to have DNA markings to see you can track the horn and its source right the way through to the end. All these are options that are possible. In the time available, I can't go into the details, but there's a lot of work has been done on the options for a legal trade, and I think it's something that should be seriously looked at and considered going ahead from here. Clearly, what we're doing now with the CITES ban on international trade and trying to stop any trade is not working. The only people getting money out of it are the criminal syndicates. And if you look at the costs of private landowners, for example, a lot of rhinos on private land in South Africa. And one private landowner, John Hume, has got 1,600 rhinos on his property. His costs each month are in the region of 3 million rand. Now that is simply not sustainable. He can never generate that amount of money from tourism, but if he was allowed to sell his horn legally, then the situation will be turned around. He's made an enormous contribution to rhino conservation, which unfortunately is not recognised. And we got a situation today when more and more of the smaller countries are saying, well, should we look at this as an option as well? Swaziland has put in a proposal to sell the rhino horn that is harvested from their rhinos. It's something that needs to be seriously looked at.